This is a great exhibit, and it's Tony Abeyta. He put it all together. It's taking him months and months. I know because he's called and said, we got to figure out some of these great things. You got some cool things to show, because it's for sale, but most of it is just Tony's ideas, your concepts of what modernism in the desert is. Maybe tell us a little bit about other things.
Sure, Mark. Really excited to be here for the Ferrari Scottsdale Art Week.
Yeah.
And basically, I was sort of asked to curate this show of modernism in the desert, to highlight and profile a lot of the art that was being produced in Scottsdale in the 50s, 60s through really the 80s, and the modernist personalities who were really vital to, building a community and connection. So everybody in this exhibition, in some way, shape, or form, is connected to each other. So
that's interesting.
So if we begin like the Paolo Soleri bells,
correct.
Now, what makes these bells really exceptional is their clay.
Right.
And the clay have this really distinctive sound. They patinized really beautiful.
Cool.
They're etched by the workshop Paolo Soleri.
Yes.
And then what's hanging behind them is actually some fabric and textiles which are produced by Manfred Sosunkowa, who printed up all of the motifs on them, and then that was used by Lloyd Kiva when he had his fashion store here in Scottsdale.
Which you have some of those too, right? You have Lloyd Kiva.
Let's go take a look at some of that.
We will. You want to do it right now? You want to finish?
Go.
All right, let's go.
Let's go. Let's go take a look at it.
So, he was one of the founders. He really kind of was the first director of IAI, right? Lloyd Kiva.
So Lloyd Kiva was the founder of the Institute of American Indian Art. So in basically the 50s, he was producing a lot of this fashion. He was working, again, remember, it's all connected. The buttons are done by Charles Loloma. And
so great.
The purses, he was working with Charles Loloma to do the buckles that went on the purses. He also worked with Kenneth Begay to do the silver work on the handbags. So we have one of the most incredible silversmiths working historically of the 20th century, which is Kenneth Begay, and that workshop, which was White Hogan.
Right.
And then you had Manfred Sosunkowa, who was producing these fabric motifs, and so was Lloyd. Lloyd was printing a lot of it. This is Lloyd completely, Lloyd. And then all of this stuff was put into really amazing fashion.
Yeah.
So this has a very specific vernacular to it. It feels like the desert, right?
And is this kind of mid-late 50s time frame?
Yeah.
I mean, these are
generally
rare.
speaking,
I can tell you, I haven't even had one of these pieces. So, how do you find things like this? How did you source this to show?
I think that's a really great question. The first thing you have to do is what are you looking for when you're curating a booth, an exhibition of modernism in the Scottsdale, Phoenix, Tucson desert?
Right.
Who was there? Who was working? So I had to start with, I thought, okay, I knew about Lloyd, and I knew when Lloyd was alive, and he was a friend. And so I, basically put the call out to I'm looking for Lloyd Kiva handbags. and of course I know people who are into we all know who's got this this baseball trading card, this comic book, Golden Age.
Yeah, you got me.
Silver Age.
He's calling me too. And what do you got?
And 95% of everybody call them on the phone, hey, I needed this, do you have that?
Right.
And they're, yes, Tony, for you, I got it. And so I put this together in about a month and a half.
Wow.
And so, I was able to procure and put together the textiles, the shirts, handbags by Lloyd Kiva.
Yes.
And let's go take a look
at... do you have any Kenneth Begay purses that he did as well? We do, right?
Let's go take a look at a couple of the things from White Hogan.
Yes. So that's a KB for sure. These are KB, 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 KB. Yeah.
Generally speaking, this is going to be almost all Kenneth Begay.
Yes.
And this is one of the largest groupings and assemblies of Kenneth Begay, White Hogan manifestations.
Cool.
So you have a workshop that's producing atypical, not just jewelry, lamps, desk sets, chess sets. We got an incredible chess set.
Look at that too.
We have here a barometer and a clock done by, and just mint condition done by Kenneth Begay. And notice that he's using hardwood, he's using ironwood, and he's inlaying that. He's putting overlay over it. And he's creating things that have never been created from a Navajo silversmith studio.
And would that have been from White Hogan? Would they have said, hey, we have somebody for this?
More than likely, a
Yeah.
commission.
A commission,
People
yeah.
will say, hey, can you make this for, my bedside?
Right.
Can you make this for my office?
Right.
So White Hogan produced some amazing manifestations. If you look really carefully, there's a very small
Right, that's super
clubs with the,
Right.
golf clubs with a small little golf ball
Right.
on it, used for probably, snuff or something.
cool. His nitroglycerin, probably, when he
Nitroglycerin.
walks up, yeah.
But we have Kenneth Begay necklaces.
Yes.
We have a purse that's produced by Kenneth Begay, along with a bracelet that
Yes.
just works
And
so
wood,
well.
too, ironwood in the center, right?
Ironwood,
Yeah.
a tie,
I know.
like a silver and ironwood tie.
Yeah.
I think you had one,
I
and I
did.
called you and I said,
Yeah.
"Do you have a tie that I can borrow?" And you
Yeah.
said, "Tony, I sold that."
Yeah, William Matthews bought it, and it's going to be in his upcoming
That's
book.
right. So
That's who
Willie
got it.
Matthews is doing
Yeah.
the great book on bolo
Bolos,
ties.
Yep. So that's
we
where it's
got
at.
we got an exceptional Kenneth Begay tray.
Yeah, is it like an ashtray, you think, or just a peanut tray, or who knows?
Not at all.
What is it?
actually,
Yeah,
I
well, I don't
actually
know.
think that's just so that you would put the things like get back at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You know,
your
you want
keys.
to put your
Yeah.
wallet, your keys,
With
and
a
your things
Yaviche in it.
and it's fantastic. And you get up on the detail of this.
Right.
It's a masterpiece.
Yeah.
All of this inlay set into their, all of that
Yes.
silver holds everything together. And
Yeah.
the back is as beautiful as the front.
And I think that's something to take away from this interview too, is that it's not always jewelry. We think of these masters of just jewelry.
Yeah.
You have examples of everything, unique. Silver spoons. I have a set like that in my collection.
Yeah.
And purses. And the
Silver
fact-
boxes.
Yeah, a mirror, right?
Here's a rare example of a mirror,
Yeah, it's so good.
and it's stamped and signed
Yes.
with White Hogan stamp. The
Right.
workshop that was a collective workshop of a few silversmiths, George Key, Alan Key.
Yes.
There was a whole industry
Yeah.
of silversmiths, and it created a market for this amazing modernist silver work.
Mm-hmm.
But it was also slightly prohibitive because you get master silversmiths producing amazing things. When do they have the time
Yeah.
to focus on their own creativity? So we have to look back at the history of Navajo
Context.
silversmiths and wonder, like, how good are trading posts for creativity? How good are workshops and the like? Do they interfere with the individual creativity, or do they stimulate creativity by challenging?
What do
the
you
artist?
think? You're an artist.
I think it's a little bit of both.
Yeah, I would think.
I think the craftsmanship shows love, passion, devotion for creating something with an immense prowess and a really immense love for design, for the way these things close and snap closed,
Right.
the way this hangs on a shirt. These feel amazing in your hand.
Yes. And usable.
That's a buckle right there, and it's inlaid. It's fantastic. Now that's actually Alan Key.
It looks like his. It's
That's
just a
Alan
little
Key's.
different. Yeah.
It's a little different.
Yeah.
But you remember this workshop, they're working in tandem. They're
Yeah.
working all together.
Yeah.
I'm spending a lot of time on White Hogan because this is an exceptional. We also have a later work by
Yes.
Harvey Begay,
Okay.
and it shows all the
son.
influences,
Yeah.
yes, of the workshop.
Also a
but,
great silversmith.
yeah, fantastical silversmith, but also he is individualized. He's no longer part of White Hogan.
Right.
Is why he's represented here, because his work, he evolved into individualism, and he was able to just make his art unhindered
Right.
by demand, deadlines, and specifications.
Yeah, they took it away. He had
Yeah.
that taken away, and he goes, "Now I'll do what I want to do."
And he opened up doors for everybody. And not everybody knows
Yeah.
that. There were a few people who, in this period of Stanley Mitchell,
Yes.
was, creating amazing things. There's so many good silversmiths that really opened the doors for the way this market has exploded.
And you're a
today.
silversmith too. I mean, you do it as a
Yeah.
smaller component of your artistic creative output,
Yeah.
but highly desirable. And so, was he an individual that influenced you, and how you saw it?
I believe that Kenneth Begay is always like, I don't have that kind of silversmithing prowess, right?
I don't know. It's pretty good stuff.
I still, would burn my fingers on a torch. But
Right.
I do silversmithing intermittently, predominantly a painter.
Yes.
But I would, learn from all of them.
Yeah.
Charles Loloma was also.
You stand on the backs of the others.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were influenced all of us, we have some really interesting small things. We actually have
Yes.
these amazing ceramic works.
Yes, tell us about those.
This exhibition, this highlight show here for
Yes.
this Ferrari Art Week.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, these are amazing to put together. Charles and Audley Loloma
His wife.
collaboration. Audley Loloma, Charles Loloma, and Charles.
Yeah, and most people wouldn't even know about that. And that was really kind of his earlier thing, was being a ceramicist, right?
He was a great
Yeah.
ceramicist in the 50s. These are probably done at Alfred. These are probably Alfred University when they were studying together at Alfred. This is a little later.
Yeah, looks
And
like
it's
a Shipibo pot,
It's
really.
fantastic,
Yeah.
And you look at just the immense, beautiful.
Oh yeah, that's great.
You know,
Beautiful turquoise.
Yeah.
Handmade earrings.
these incredibly rare.
Yeah,
And
I've only
really
seen a couple in
exceptional.
my career.
What do I like? I love all of this stuff.
Yeah, it all
if
fits
if
in.
it's great and it's rare, it tells a little bit about the show and modernism. We got 3 miniature works in here by Fritz Scholder.
Yes.
Just like the smallest Fritz Scholder that was ever done, right?
I've never
As a
seen one
gift to
small.
somebody who was
Yeah.
a fellow instructor at the Institute of American Indian Arts.
Yeah, that's interesting.
This is a Fritz Scholder that he did a series of these small cards that were different tribes, and he painted over them, you know.
Yes.
So if you see him and turn them up, call me.
Yeah.
And there's a print, or you call him too, but here's a print, the only print that he ever did of this, which is Custer.
Yeah, that's
And
interesting.
it's an etching. He did it at the Institute of American Indian Art. And it just says proof, and I've never seen another one like
Do you
it.
think they were kind of, I know you said the one's a gift, but you think like the ones that were the portraits for all the different
Tribes?
tribes,
Yeah.
what exactly did he do those for, or why?
Probably did those for early exhibitions. He probably did them as a group of maybe 12.
Yeah, it could be. I have
all-
that lithographs that he did of like
Yeah.
12
Sure.
different tribes. I wonder if it was associated with that.
Same time period.
Yeah.
And with all artists, sometimes the big epic paintings take a little while.
Yes,
We got time while we're sitting down waiting for
Yeah.
our airplane
yes,
to do something small.
yeah. And,
Or
and
while
this
you're on
is
the plane.
interesting that, because I had just looked at him as being a New Mexico artist.
Yeah. He generally worked. These were
Yes.
all done in Taos.
Yeah.
I cheated the system here
Yeah,
a little
okay.
bit, but he's from Bisbee, Arizona. He's born in
Oh, I
in
didn't know
Bisbee.
that. Tell about this.
These
he's a
are
Santero
really
Boto.
exceptional, organic, modern wood carvings that are done out of cedar.
Yes.
Patrocinio Barella.
Yes.
Hispanic. And,
Yeah.
and I wanted to put him in there because this has got a predominance of Anglo, modernist, and
Hispanic.
Native American, a lot of Hopi in here and a lot of Navajo. But I really felt like we need to also sort of round it out with some of the cultural representations of people here. So it's strategic. Like everything in here is meant to be in here.
Yeah, that's the thing. When somebody does one of these shows and puts the effort and energy into it, there's a connection, there's a thread, right? Even my booth is going to have a thread. And this clearly, I could see it coming together as you were doing it. I was like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, this is interesting.
And these
yeah.
guys are all working together simultaneously, right? You have Audley and Charles
Yes.
working together.
Yes.
You have Fritz Scholder working with Lloyd Kiva New, and you have White Hogan is already a collective, and he's working with Lloyd
He's
Kiva
working
New.
with
Lloyd
Lloyd
being
Kiva
at
New.
the center
Yes.
of it. So we have drawings,
Yes.
early drawings by Charles Loloma, which are very calligraphical, very,
Very rare. I've
Very rare.
never had one.
they're fantastic.
Yeah.
They're really wonderful.
And
We
so
got
is that
3 of
like
them.
mid 50s time frame?
Probably 1958, 1965.
Yeah.
You know, I can just make up the date.
Yeah,
But,
but you should look at this. This is why we do these things, because
Yeah.
I haven't seen anything like this, and I've been doing it a long time, and I don't know where you got it, but
yeah.
I'm glad you did.
Yeah.
Because other people can see this, and there may be others out there in the world that
Well-
we don't even know about.
What we see are things like cloud motifs. We see like feather prayer,
Oh yeah, for sure.
shrine elements. But more than that,
Yeah,
we're
little
dealing.
Sublette right there.
Yeah, but you see abstraction happening,
Complete
right?
abstraction. Yeah.
Very abstract. The other two were very calligraphical. They're just wonderful.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the thing that people may not realize, that the 50s was awash with great modern native works that kind of just got overthrown, like Oscar
Yeah.
Howe or Fritz Scholder or
Yeah.
Charles Loloma.
Yeah.
And you have a big, interesting Fritz Scholder right here.
You know, the thing is, everybody knows Fritz. Like, Fritz
Right.
has been, you know, one of the most important artists. That seminal modern painting that came out of the Institute of American Indian Arts. But he was influenced by all of this, everything happening
yeah.
here, right? And he was painting cats and architecture
Right.
and blanket stripes and things.
Right.
And, you know, being exposed to, he was there simultaneously with T.C. Cannon.
Yes.
Gray Coho, if you guys don't know about Gray Coho,
Yes.
phenomenal, rare painter, you know,
Right.
that died too young, was a poet and a musician. But Fritz, this is a really wonderful example of Fritz's work, which is Indian with Hangover from 1970, you know, 7 or 75 or 77. And what you've seen here is just a portrait of the aftermath of the next day. If you've ever had a hangover, you know the feeling. But more than that, it's a statement, right?
Yes,
it's a
that's right.
statement on the condition, social, political,
Right.
you know, condition of Native Americans dealing with substance abuse
Right.
and you know, all of that. So they have deep connections to storytelling and also the perceptions of what Native Americans are seen as. Like, you know, there's an Indian, oh, he's from Gallup, he probably is drunk. I grew up there.
And he's
so
from
I
Gallup.
and I can say
Yeah.
that. But,
Yeah.
but I do think that part of this narrative still continues about the stereotypical ideas about Native people.
Right.
When you also are dealing with Native Americans who are, you know, lawyers, activists, actors.
Every musicians.
We could go on.
Yeah.
I mean, jewelers and
Yeah.
painters and whatnot.
And he is, again, to connect, he went to Arizona State, in University of Arizona to get his master's. He lives in Scottsdale, so he's an Arizona transplant, basically.
Sure.
I think he looks at Santa Fe and Arizona
Yeah.
kind of as his home. So
Yeah.
again, it fits the narrative of what
And
you...
he was a fixture here in Scottsdale.
He was a fixture
I mean,
here.
he knew everybody and everybody knew him, and all
Yeah.
these paintings seem to like
Yeah.
emerge from older collections
Right.
and things. So we have much
Yes.
later
Yes.
painting by him, a woman drinking her tea
Yes.
or holding a pot, one of the two, sitting in a chair. But you can see how it changed so much. You know, the work. He wanted to leave the idea of
Yes.
like the Indian.
He had done it.
And then he retreated back to it.
Yeah,
you know,
I mean,
it was-
even yourself. I mean, you've done early Yebaches and different
Yes.
things, move forward more, you know, it's your
Yeah.
work, I can tell you, but I see the transition from 80s to today.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Let's
yeah, so
let's go.
We should talk about that at some
Yeah,
point.
we could talk about
should.
me, but I'd rather talk about these guys.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
So-
Well, let's talk about an important Arizonian for
Okay.
sure. I'll sit on this side of it.
So what we have here is a really exceptional painting by Ed Mell,
Yes.
who is really also, we're talking about fixtures of, you know, Phoenix, Scottsdale, the Valley, right?
Yeah.
Loved by everybody. Now, Ed's sort of wake on painting in the Southwest, the light, the modernist. He is everything that is, you know, modernism in this region.
Yes.
And Ed's work has a spirit to it of its own. It really talks about this vernacular, like, you know, these mountains, you know, these are definitely, you know, part of this sense of place, right?
Yes.
So we have a bucking bronco, but we have a bronco that's moving, and like, how do you paint this guy? Like, how do you paint
Right.
something? It feels A, sculptural, B, it's in movement. We have like, his hand is up and like, he's staying on the horse. He's not falling off. There's something very eternal about this moment. It's like a great photograph that's captured
Right.
in paint. And he's just, we've got two in this exhibition, and I feel honored to have
Nice.
him represented in modernism in the
He would
desert.
love hearing that.
Yeah,
He really would.
yeah.
You know, and if you go down to Old Town in Scottsdale, you're going to see Jackknife, which I think was 1992. And that's, you know, that's where this is all coming from, right? And yeah, these are not common. These are very rare, I can tell
Yeah.
you. I
Both of
mean,
them are really rare examples of Ed's work.
yes. And the other one we'll get to and talk to is a
Yeah.
Hopi piece.
We'll
yeah,
keep moving because we
can
got a
go
lot to see.
Yeah, yeah. So the Hopi piece is interesting because he went to Hopi and spent time at Hopi in like 78 and became friends and did things that inspired him.
Yeah.
And made him come back to Arizona from New York City. He said, yeah, no, I'm Arizonian. So it's really interesting. Native arts really brought him back to his roots. And if he hadn't have done that, I don't know if he would have been Ed Mell.
you know, he spent a lot of time. I'm a landscape painter. We know what I do. And in order to paint the landscape, you have to feel it, you have to experience it, you have to watch clouds move slowly across the sky, you got to watch Virga, the connection between everything celestial and buoyant, and then everything that is the land and the light and everything. I mean, I can't use enough adjectives to talk about what it takes to make a good landscape. But Ed got every minute of that. And everyone knows that. Now those paintings are they're getting rarer, and they're getting, you handle some of his work, they're getting pretty exceptionally pricey.
Yes,
so
they found their market finally.
They found their market, and they'll keep going. That's what the great thing about those. They're just going to keep, you know, people like, oh, that's a lot of money. And I'm like, don't think too hard about it.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, it's a classic, and he was building from the bottom up. I mean, if you talk to just yourself, I mean, you're an important artist, and you're inspired and influenced by him.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that tells you the importance of Ed Mell.
Unapologetically. I mean, I look at his work and on mine, and we're, you know, we're painting through the same lens.
Yeah, well, he loved your work. I know that.
Yeah, we were friends. You know, I wish I would have spent more time.
He told me independently he liked your work.
Yeah, I loved him. Yeah.
And
okay,
so what do we have?
We have Lloyd Kiva new.
That's so
this
crazy.
Is you know, soft. But what I love about this is he really was a fabric designer, but he did this as a painting on silk. It
and that's the
almost,
signature here, right?
Signed, I think it's from 70.
Yeah, I can see the Lloyd,
Yeah, and it's just these birds in movement. And
that's
you know,
beautiful.
it always reminds me of one of my favorite books, and I'll tell the story as quick as I can, and I've always loved this painting for this reason. I dated this girl when I was in college, and she'd asked me what books I read, and I said, I don't read books. She says, I can't date you. You got to read a book. I can't do this now. And then she says, here, Jonathan Livingston Seagull, go read it and call me back. This is a true story.
Yeah, I get it.
I read the book. Yeah. Okay. 7, 10 pages later, I'm done.
Right.
My first book, I'm ashamed to say. Other than like On the Road that I read in high school, which I learned, I adopted much later in life.
Yeah.
Jonathan Livingston Seagull was the book that changed my perspective on what is our purpose in life. Like, is it just to like eat? Is it for sustenance? Or is it about flight? Is it about actually the experience of flying? And that's what that book's about. And I still remember that it does that always to me.
Did you go back and date her?
No. She,
look at that.
She's married or something. I'm pretty sure now. But she was like, "You got to read a book. Like I can't do this with you.
That's a gift for you."
Yeah. Don't call me until you read the book.
And so when you see this, does that bring you back to that book?
It does.
Yeah.
And I always like that because I always think that's Jonathan Livingston Seagull.
Oh wow.
Because it is a story.
Yes.
And it is really, and that's what art is. What we're really looking at and talking about is soft-spoken poetry, how we can relate our own experiences to the artist and their vision. And he may have seen this, and it could have came from a dream, had nothing to do with my narrative.
Right.
But I will always adopt the image that will find purchase in my consciousness.
Yes.
And it will become mine and me, as we do with all art. We see, look at, there's the glorious sun coming up. That reminds me of my son coming, growing up.
So is this a piece that's just exhibit or for sale?
This is just sold.
Okay, so when you sell something, because you have an emotional connection to it, obviously.
Yeah.
Do you go, that's something I could have really lived with for maybe forever?
You know, for me, it's not really about that. I feel it's about finding the right place for it too.
Okay.
So I'm less interested in owning and acquiring things that I have to own for the rest of my life. It's really about like, how do I find a place for something like this to go where other people can see it, appreciate it, and that's more important at the moment.
And you think that's partially because being an artist, you produce all these things and then you have to let them go, that it makes it easier for you to do it when you're doing other works of art because you know those artists did the same thing and had the same kind of mentality?
Well, I don't know how important it is. I'm going to skirt your question there, but I think it's about how important is it for us to own all of this stuff. We can have an experience with it and let other people have experiences. It's like, here's a bracelet, try it on, it fits you. There you go.
This one.
Yeah, so I love the idea that I can still appreciate it, but it didn't have to be on my wrist, right?
I got this from Tony, so
Yeah,
It was
yeah,
his.
we did a trade.
I mean, yeah, we did a trade. He got something he loved. I got something I love. And so,
Yeah.
you know, really, that's a very interesting. I didn't really know that quite about you. don't
I
think.
really feel like it's, you know, somebody once told me, Tony, you're like a hoarder. You're a high-end hoarder, but you're a hoarder. And I'm like, I need to let things go and let loose some things because I don't. When I stop looking at it, when I start having the relationship with it, then I know it's time for somebody else.
Yeah, I get
the art
that.
actually has a voice. You just have to listen to it, and it says like, "Hey, you don't appreciate me. You know, why don't you
Yeah.
go and find the right place for me?" And that's all I, you know. Sometimes I don't really want to sell something if I just think it's, you know, not going to be, you know, if they don't really understand it. This is going to match something.
Yeah, forget it.
Yeah, forget it.
Yeah, I get it.
Let's
I
look
agree.
at let's go look at this other Ed Mell.
Yeah. So I particularly like this piece because I have the study for it in my own house. So this is an important Ed Mell. Yeah, tell us what you know, what you.
Long hair Kachinas.
Yeah.
We spend time up at Hopi. We get the end of the day. How do we know that? We just feel the light of it. And what was he so great at capturing is the time, the essence, the moment. Like this is a fleeting ceremony. White guy painting Indians, it's nothing new, but
Yeah.
he's doing a lot of this from memory and his connection and experience, and I believe he taught up there,
Yes.
and he had a really rich, and that drive between
Hopi,
Scottsdale
yeah.
and Hopi,
Right.
I see all of like, I know where he got it all from,
Yeah.
I know what he saw, I know what time of day he was.
Right.
This is all real, these moments of the time and the light. Sometimes people try to figure that out, but he just innately has a connection to the memory of how the landscape feels and looks. But frames, he designed them.
Yeah, Collier made
This
these.
is from a private collection, and it's stupendous. It's just really one of those. I loved every minute of it. And you know what I really love about this painting is that the figures connect with the landscape. The landscape
Yeah.
runs through them. They are part of
Yep.
their vernacular, their sense of place. They are the light.
right.
They are the spirit of Hopi land, and it's beautiful to see how people can handle what ritual, what ceremony is, and either honor it or just capitalize on it. I feel
Right.
like this lends itself more to like, I see it and I'm like, look at this. This is
Yeah.
really like, I sense that they're really part of that landscape.
Yes.
There's something really very mysteriously poetic about it, and I love that.
And he talked to his Hopi friends, by the way.
Yeah.
And he did, and he said, "Is this okay for me to do this?"
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
he did procession as well, which is a sculpture that kind of.
I've
like
seen a
this.
sculpture like this.
Yeah,
You're right.
and they said, "Yeah, no, that's fine. You get
Yeah.
it. You understand what you're doing." So he took that seriously
Yeah.
because he didn't want to feel like he was taking anything that he shouldn't. And
Yeah.
they said, "No, you know, you were teaching
Sure.
at our school as well, and you got it."
Yeah.
So yeah, the piece I have too has got a lot of movement in it, even more.
Yeah.
Smaller.
Sure.
I'll share a picture with you when
I wanna
I
see
go
it.
home and
Yeah.
see it in
I love that about, so I do this because I learn about it, right?
Yes.
And people say, how do you get all this stuff? And I'm like, well, because I really am passionate and I care all about this stuff. And I like, you know how some people have hobbies like water skiing or,
Golf.
or you know, skydiving or things? I love art and I like the history and the connections. I
Yeah.
want to know everything about, you know, people say, I wish I was born 100 years ago. And I'm like, no, I like the here and the now. But I want to understand what happened 100 years ago. And I can see it all. The narrative is all in the art.
Do you think because you're native, you're Dene, that history of people, land is maybe a little different take than maybe mine? You know, my starts they come here in 1720s. Yeah.
I think it's understanding your vernacular. Like where are you at? Like
Yeah.
if you live in this Phoenix Valley, you should have some understanding of like what was the community of
Backstory.
artists? What's your relationship, you know, to quails and coyotes
Yeah.
and the birds
Uh-huh.
and mourning and you know, heat.
Yeah.
Like you should understand those things as like the beautiful parts of it,
The land.
and not focus just on the golf of it,
Yeah.
not focus on the air conditioning of it, and there's so much stuff, and it enriches your life. Art enriches your life. Let's go look
Yeah.
at
All right.
the painting behind you.
Yes, yes. Oh yeah, this is cool. I don't know.
I got two paintings in the gallery. Dennis Numkana,
Yes.
who was a Hopi architect, futurist. He's creating this landscape, which feels two different things. It feels incredibly cosmic in some ways, like they have this very cosmic kind of feel to it. They're architectural, but they also have the sense of the underworld. I personally like this painting because I really feel like this is probably done in the 80s. I think it's a break dancer. I look at it and I see, like, I know what that break is, right? And,
kind of with the
and
hand.
he's got his hand up and he's got his arm here. But it's also part of that idea is that I see something in it that reminds me of breakdancing, but it's also the figure with the landscape and the architecture. Let's go look at another one, which is a little,
that's very cool.
a little different color palette.
Oh yeah, a lot different color palette. So different.
I have amazing art in this booth, and it's not because I'm wealthy and I just bought all this to put here. Like, I actually was fortunate that people said, Tony, I got a painting that you should put in the booth. And I'm like, great, I want to put that in there. And so there's so much of this stuff that just came to me because I had the vision to say, this is what I want to do. I want to curate this exhibit. And it's not an economical endeavor. A lot of the stuff isn't for sale.
Yeah, and you could have painted a painting.
Yeah.
By the time you, more than that. Actually.
Sure. So we have here two different things. We have architecture, and we have the outside coming in, going down under. So you have a relationship to this world that we live in.
Right.
What feels like this very modern architectural Kiva design. And then you have something that goes down further, again, another desert. Have you ever been in like a dream and you have this idea, you're inside, you're outside, you're moving through a labyrinth, you go down under and yet you come out and there's a river and you're like, I'm gonna go for a swim. Anyway, I have those dreams.
Yeah.
But here we have, he's an architect. He's telling his story, his narrative. And everything in this is completely about who he was as a Hopi tribal member, but also as he was a architect.
Yeah.
And I love it.
Yeah, you can see the Hopi maidens coming up with the old school rolls falling, and then this almost, if you, I mean, it's like a Kiva situation, but you look at it, it also looks like a modern home.
Yeah.
Very much.
I love this. I love this.
Yeah, and that's really, and he
that's
painted
what
the
this show
frame
is
too,
about.
right? He did the whole frame. Looks like it.
I think he did.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, I mean, it just merges into the frame. We're here at this case, and like, where do we get all this amazing stuff? A chess set.
This one's crazy. Yeah.
From the White Hogan.
Yeah.
It was made by Kenneth Begay.
That's so
Comes
amazing.
with a box where all of the
pieces
fit
that
in
he
that
made.
box.
Yes.
It's fantastic. It's made with two different kinds of fruit wood and I think rosewood. And every one of those pieces is all made by Kenneth Begay. It's signed, and it's just a masterpiece of his.
Do you think this is one of one?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the Kenneth Begay chess set. If you're a grandmaster out there,
We actually refer to it as the Kenneth
yeah, you
Begay
should.
chess set.
That's why I asked, because I've never seen any of this. I've heard of one, and it must have been this one.
It's this one.
Yeah, which is
Because there's no other one.
which is amazing. And is that available if somebody did want to buy something like
I
that?
don't know. I mean, you get something like that. I mean, how do you part with it? You know, I mean,
Well, you have to give, right? That's what you
Well,
said.
it's kind of, it's kind of like having a Mondrian.
yeah,
If you know somebody wants it,
right.
but you don't want to really know the value of it because you never
It's
want to part
the
with it.
chess set. Yeah, it's the only one.
Yeah.
You can't replace it.
Yeah, it's a good question to ask, which I don't have the answer to.
Yeah. Okay.
But,
You'll have to talk to Tony.
but look at this.
Yeah.
This is a purse.
Yes. Kenneth
that-
Begay again.
Actually, it's not. That's
Oh, is
that's,
that Alan Key? Or who?
George Key.
Oh, George Key.
I love the representation of
Yes.
the Key brothers and also
Yes.
and then you have this other White Hogan. Again, elegant, modernist.
Beautiful.
Great selections of Charles Loloma jewelry. Two of his great inlaid bracelets.
I love how you did the little design. So, just setting it up, right, as a curator.
Yeah.
How did you come about, okay, I'm going to get some burl wood, I'm going to get some coral. I mean, how did that occur?
I think part of it was just like my innate, like studying art and design and looking at everything. But no, actually this morning I needed a pedestal to put some of the jewelry on. I went over to Old Territorial down on Main Street.
Yes.
I said, do you guys got something? And they're like, they got a group of people in there, and and they were so kind.
Yeah, that's
And
really
they said,
fun.
Tony, will this work for you?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
And I took that and I went out and they had this tour that they were giving in there. That's not me. That's community.
It is community, but it is you, because you went all the way to Old Town Scottsdale to try to find the right pedestal to make sure it works. Then you bring in the coral and you bring in the turquoise.
Doesn't that look good?
Yeah, it looks organic.
See that stone?
Yeah.
That stone's amazing. Why is that stone amazing? Because that was carved by Charles Loloma.
Oh, wow.
This adds like a fetish. It's like a handheld.
Oh, that's super
So there's little things like this shard that came off of his, his land, inlaid with turquoise and rosewood.
Yeah, that's a one of one.
It's one of one, and that came directly from the estate in Georgia Loloma. Tell me about these. You know something about them.
Yeah, they're expensive, is what I. Yeah, these are Michael Kabotie's and some of his great pieces. So this particular piece has Lone Mountain in it, which really makes it unusual. It's I think early '80s, right? And
let's see.
I have a feeling it might fit.
1983.
Yeah.
Lone Mountain. Absolutely, all of his great modernist overlay.
This is key if you're going to get a bracelet. Make sure it fits. And man, does that fit like a glove.
Look at this.
Oh yeah, that one's really.
This is fantastic.
Please don't show that to me.
So what's really wonderful about this?
Yeah.
Is with a lot of jewelers, you could even look at like McKee Platero and stuff. They're so good in their prowesses, doing great design, but really large, thicker cups.
Right.
And then when you find one that's a little thinner, and lightweight, and then again, it's got that great recognizable. People are like,
they go, whoop, I know who that is.
Because it's and it is and these are rare, right? These
Very rare.
You can't.
No.
Why do I have them here? I mean,
that one's
just
mine.
because I ask people, I say, can I borrow this? Can I have this?
Yes.
And so, just fantastic examples of his prowess but he's a painter.
Yes, and it
He's a
shows,
painter
don't you think? I mean, you look at that feels like a painting done in silver to me.
The speed of the lines, of the design. Those are all abstractions of water birds, cloud motifs, elemental things. Yeah, he's really catching me out. We have a whole wall of different things, but I'm only going to point out a couple of things quickly. This is for all of you who don't get to be here to see this show, because it's really amazing.
And it's living forever because we're doing this. So that's the key.
Yeah.
This is why we do these things, because you can come back and you can hear this explanation. Even if you came to this show, you're not going to get to spend this kind of time. I'm taking time away from Tony where he could be showing and selling and everything. So we appreciate that, because this is history that we make right now, you and I. Yeah. Which is why I'm doing it, as a matter of fact.
So, Neil David.
Yeah.
Dan Naminga.
Yes.
This is Les Naminga, who's a really phenomenal, great potter.
Yeah.
All of these people connected, not only through their own tribe, but through the modernist interpretation of their traditionalism.
Yeah,
right?
I love the Les.
What do we have here? Rare and crazy to have a wonderful example of Charles Loloma's painting work. He was a jeweler. We have some of his jewelry. We've seen his pottery.
Right.
He was also a painter with some really rich, wonderful narrative.
What year would have that been done?
I think it says 59.
Yeah, I would assume really early.
And so it's done really early. And we have what appears to be the Milky Way.
Right.
Big Dipper's up here.
Right.
You have all these animals with hearts. You have peaky bread. You have stew.
Right.
You have these
Heartline
really interesting
deer.
things. Yeah, I mean, you have this great deer. It has a sense of mystery, and that's what I love about it, is that we don't quite understand. Someone out there says, oh, I know what that is. And we don't need to know. We just need to know that this example of his painting prowess shows that he had spectrum, that he had, bandwidth to be able to do not only jewelry. He could have been anything.
Yeah, he had
He would have been a
curiosity.
great architect.
Yes.
Would have been an incredible architect.
Yeah. In a way, he was, when you think about
Thank
how
you
he
for
did,
saying it. Yeah,
looking
agreed.
at his jewelry and everything that he's done.
These are some drawings by an architect, an artist, and really interesting character here in Scottsdale Valley is Paul Coase. Rose Cabot. What are those called?
Yeah, those are feelies, is what they call them.
They're what? They're tactile?
Yeah, they're tactile.
And they got
They're-
sound to them when you actually hold them and you move your hand across
Yeah.
that matte glaze with your rings on. You know, you rub your rings on
Yeah,
them.
my wife
Just
doesn't let
kidding.
me do that.
Don't do that.
These were borrowed from my wife.
So these things, and so thank you. I want to say, how does this happen?
Yes.
It begins with the phone call, right? It's kind of like that thing about, like, how do you manifest this exhibition? It's like, how do you get into college? First, you fill out the application,
Right.
is what they say.
Yeah.
And so
Then you call your neighbor who happens to go to that college and knows the person.
I know who to call.
and that-
Like,
yeah.
I think it's just, it's getting the yes.
Yes.
When
And
people
making the
say,
calls
like,
too, by the
What
way.
are you doing? What's this going to be about? I'm like, it's just art in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and in the desert. And these are the people I'm looking for. And I had to edit some people.
I'm sure.
I had a really phenomenal Frank Lloyd drawing, Taliesin West, and I just can't do everything with a limitation of wall space. And so there's like a higher concentration of Native American material here.
But that
mainly
makes
because
sense, right? Hohokam, this is the basin of Native American.
Yeah.
It all kind of flows from that anyway.
I think it all comes from that,
Yeah,
that source.
sure.
It's about the source of it.
I
And
think
you know,
so.
with the rose cabot, this stuff is really, really intimate and special.
Yeah, it's
And
delicate.
It's a rich craftsman tradition that's happening here. We have the Shires, Mary and Edwin Shire, am I
Yes.
right?
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah.
The Shires, okay.
Yeah, over here.
And
yeah.
They were creating amazing, you know, three-dimensional
Oh, yeah, look at
vessels
that.
with like inverted children and animals and the relationship between, you know, fish, and their narratives are
Mm-hmm.
really animated. They're fun, they're playful, and you can see the glazes are just immense. And this
Hmm.
is just children frolicking, playing, you know, somersaulting.
It reminds
that's-
me of Paul's work, the Solaris. I mean,
Oh,
this
yeah.
very
Yeah, yeah.
much has a inverted bells, basically.
If I did enough of my homework, which I didn't do, I
Yes.
could connect the Shires, Cabot,
I'm sure.
to Arcosanti, and I could talk a lot more about Paolo because his connection
Yes.
with Lloyd Kiva knew. He designed the Paolo Soleri Amphitheater in Santa Fe, New Mexico. So he did that, and he hired all Native American students to build it for him. He's a really important. If you live here in Phoenix and the Scottsdale Valley, you get over to Cosanti, you get to Arcosanti, and you'll thank me because you'll be able to really witness one of the brilliant geniuses of the architectural, like his ideas. He hated the word visionary. I use it behind his back. I know he's no longer with us, and bless his achievements, but he really had some insightful things to protect and preserve the desert. He wanted to build on hillsides so that you could have the water retaining and trickling down to different fields and things. Brilliant. And what happened now? We're eating up this desert, and
Pretty
every
quickly.
square piece of real estate is occupied.
Yeah.
If it's not protected by
Green.
Gila
Yeah.
Indian River tribes
It's
and
true.
such.
You come in,
know?
you come in and you see these green areas, and you're like, wow, why hasn't that been developed? Well, because the people that own
Indian land.
Indian land, they
Yeah.
don't want to sell it.
They don't want to.
They don't wanna
They
touch
don't want
it.
a hotel. They don't want a
Yeah, no.
car lot. They don't
No.
want. They want an In-N-Out burger.
Well, we have one
Anyway.
last thing, right? We haven't
Yes,
talked
and I
about
want
this
to
piece.
finish up with this because
Yeah, because talking
again
about
we're
it's
talking
kind
about
of everything.
collaborations and connections.
Yes.
Again, Hopi. And this is Ramona Sakiestewa,
Right.
who's is a really talented
Weaver.
woman artist
Yes.
who is a weaver.
Yes.
But the motif is
Frank Lloyd Wright.
Frank Lloyd Wright,
Yeah.
right?
With a Hopi bird, though, right
it
there.
feels
Yeah, it does to
feels
me.
like all of it, and vegetal dyes.
Yes.
It's very much about architecture, but it's also about just that meditative practice of weaving. Wonderful example to close with, because that's what this exhibition is really about. How did everybody affect and influence one another? What impact did this sense of place have on people? How did they influence one another? It's so visible to me because there's not as many people. You go to Santa Fe, oh my gosh, Santa Fe is getting all this influence from Chicago, New York,
Right.
Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Here it's a little different.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it's indigenous sources that really influenced a lot of amazing people.
Yes, and a lot of
So-
those people were from here when you think about it, right?
Yeah.
Mell, Arizona, KC, KB, Kenneth McGay, Arizona, Rose Cabot from Arizona, Hopi, Arizona. All these artists are Arizona. I mean, when I say Arizona, I mean they're born
Yeah.
in Arizona.
Sure. We haven't talked about Max Ernst. We haven't talked about Rockwell Kent. I think he's here as well.
Yes, he was.
And, there's a huge, like, I can't do everything.
No.
And some stuff's too hard. Like
Yeah.
Max Ernst, who was in Sedona,
Yeah, hard to
he
get.
actually built Capricorn, one of the most famous sculptures. I think it's in every major museum in Europe. It was built in Sedona.
Yeah.
I went out there and looked at the area where it was.
Right.
And I was like, that's an amazing work, a masterpiece of modern art.
Yes,
A masterpiece of modern art.
yes.
And it was built there in Sedona. But you can't really find his work to
Yeah, or
include
get
in
a
something
Rockwell
like
Kent
this.
wouldn't have been that easy either. Especially you have to get one that was kind of related to this.
I actually tried.
One thing you didn't have though, interestingly, no Maynard Dixon.
I love Maynard's work, and he's part of this conversation.
Yeah.
He was a little bit earlier, and I felt like if I included
Yeah.
him, I had to go back, because there's a lot of other people. I could also
Yeah.
have included Fred Kabotie, who's
Yeah, he dies in 46. So, he's right on the cusp of that edge
Sure.
of where
I kind of wanted it at 50s,
Yeah.
60s, we're really
Yeah.
talking about modernism. Yes, he has those elements.
Yes,
He's his own unique animal, though,
Yeah,
and
that's
as you
true.
have a personal relationship because
right.
you're more familiar with the estate and his work.
Yeah.
I had to filter, and sometimes as a curator, you have to come in and say, I can't do everything. I got to keep focus, and I have to say, people like, I got this for you and I got that, and I'm
Yep.
like, thanks, but no thanks.
Yeah.
I can't do everything.
You could have
But-
made it boomers. They have to be of the boomer age. So that starts in 1946, and that's when he dies. So you could have slid him under.
Booners,
Yeah.
It's another
'Cause-
exhibition.
Yes, because everyone in here is pretty much right in that, the greatest age to boomers, all of them.
Yeah.
That's just a little later after
Well,
that.
and I just want to make a pitch for the Scottsdale Art Week, which is, what did we have thousands of people here last night?
Yes.
A fashion show,
Unbelievable.
a huge gathering for Melissa Cody, who,
Yeah,
who came
she's
out
gonna
here
talk,
to get
right?
she got an award last night.
Oh, yeah, we were.
And then I'm on a panel with her tomorrow that
Oh, yeah.
we're going to be talking about.
Yeah, we're going to film that actually.
Yeah, okay, great. Yeah,
We plan on it.
Yeah.
He's an amazing
Listen to
weaver.
her. Don't ask me anything.
I'll just listen.
But I actually feel like this is a really great thing for Scottsdale.
Yes.
It needed a kick in the butt and a reboot because there is a rich tradition of
Yes.
culture, art here that needs to be focused on. A lot of the booths here have got good representations of art.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted my focus to be about the here and the place
Yes.
and the culture. Where do you live? Who are the people that were there before you? And what influences did they have on modern art?
Yeah, I think you did that beautifully. And I would even
Thanks for
add,
saying it.
let's throw in Tucson because it's also the same of tradition of Tucson. We're here supporting it. And, a lot of these artists were Tucson based as well.
Yeah.
So, but it's that basin of Arizona that so few people really have ever scratched the top of this. This could be one of the first exhibits like this, right?
In a really long time, I don't think this is happening.
Yeah.
I use the word seminal for this exhibition because
Yeah.
the
Well, and it's
show-
also you're Native American, so you can bring it from a different component than
Yeah.
these. I mean, it's true. You see it a
Well,
little differently,
part
I
of
think.
part of that is that I'm interested in it.
Oh, yeah, I know you are.
And I believe it or not, so many of these people are my friends.
Yeah,
I
I'm
know,
sure.
there's a few people I didn't know, but I knew Fritz and and I've met Charles and so many and Michael Kabotie, who was really a wonderful person. Of course,
Yes.
Ed and
Yeah.
I can keep Lloyd Kiva. I knew them all,
Yeah.
right? That's an advantage.
That's a huge advantage because it
Yeah.
gives you an inside emotional connection to
Yeah.
not only art, but actually the person.
Yeah,
And that's a rare thing. That's why this is important.
true that.
Yeah.
But even like Paolo
Yeah.
Soleri. Like I've been to Cosanti, I've been to Arcosanti.
Right.
I've met Paolo. I talked to him about his architecture.
Oh, that's
I
cool.
understood his concepts, and I thought, what an amazing person. I've been lucky and fortunate to be able to just be on the same road at the same time, and you know that a lot of really amazing people have been.
You're paying attention though too. You're asking questions. You're paying attention.
Yeah. You got to care about it. If you're dismissive and you're like, I don't really, I don't got time for that. I got to play golf.
Yeah.
Yeah. Living proof life's too long.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Tony. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks.
It
Thanks
was
for coming
beautiful.
by.
Yeah,
I'm
I
really
always
glad.
love talking to you.
Always, we have a blast.
We
right?
do.
Go like that.
Yeah, we do.
There you go.
Tony Abeyta, come see it. If you don't, it's Modernism in the Desert. It'll be on YouTube. We're going to put this out there forever so people can listen, learn. And I learned a lot today. I always learn from somebody like Tony Abeyta. He has such an in-depth knowledge of art, creativity, and he also gets the idea of the importance it is to people, you know. And, I wear his bracelet, right? Yeah.
Trade you back for some.
No. I'm not like you. I want to keep mine. All right, that was awesome.